Welcome to week 7 of our mini lectures in 7512 NSC Aviation Leadership and Communication. This week we're continuing talking about different leadership styles. So we've looked at traits, we've looked at behaviour, we've looked at contingency, and this is part of the integrative theories. This week we're talking about leader membership exchange and followership. And these are important because every leader is also a follower. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO of the company, you answer to the chairman of the board. And if you're chairman of the board, you answer to the shareholders. So everyone's got a boss somewhere along the line. What we're going to be doing this week, we're going to be talking about the evolution of dyadic theory. Don't be worried about the word. Academics love complex expressions for simple things. The word di means two. That is, dyadic means two things, leader and follower. Simple. We're going to define the two kinds of relationships that can occur amongst leaders and followers. We're going to describe team building with an emphasis of the leader-follower perspective. We're going to be talking about the factors involving leader-member exchange and the strengths of the theory itself. The next thing we're going to be coming to is a model. Now, do you remember I said that Maslow was really important today? This one, Kelly's model, I think this is one of the great models of understanding leadership. And it's going to talk about the two major behaviours and the 5 follower types. And this is really important in aviation because aviation is full of good examples here. We're going to list the 5 things a leader should delegate, that is, sharing the power, we've spoken about that before, and look about recommended activities necessary for leadership effectiveness in the 3 steps of evaluation and feedback. So there's a lot to cover in this lecture. So the mini lecture is just going to touch on giving you a taste for some of the things that we're going to be doing here. Okay, first of all, the dyadic approach. We've got a number of different development stages. First of all, we have the vertical dyadic linkage theory, or VDL. And this talks about the individualised leader-follower interactions that create in-groups and out-groups. Have you encountered this already? This is something you find in workplaces, that leaders, without recognising it, have their favourites, but they have people that they mightn't dislike, but they create the impression that perhaps they don't like them as much as other people. And this is something that can be a very dangerous thing in a workplace. For example, if you're trying to build a team, the last thing you want in a team is some people feeling, well, there are some team members, but there are some people who are lesser team members. So this is an important one for you to become a good leader, because where you see this in groups and out groups, and you may have seen it before, it can be almost cancerous in lowering the motivation of some people in the group. Where do we go from there? We come to the leader-member exchange. And this focuses on the quality of each dyad and its effect. That is, each leader-follower reaction. Right? So where you have a group of 5, you have a leader-follower interaction amongst each of those 5 people. Leader and follower 1, leader follower 2, and so on. And so that adds up to the sum total of the leader-member exchange. Then we get team building, and we know in every organisation we get organisational divisions, and divisions are broken down into groups, and groups are broken down, and a team is simply a group of people embarked on a common task. And the thing is that what we need to do is say that when a leader is in charge of a team, everyone needs to feel that they're a valued member. And we'll be talking about that. And then we get systems and networks. That is, where we get teams interacting with other teams within the organisation and teams outside the organisation. And so what we're talking about here is creating a positive dyadic relationship across traditional boundaries. That is, it's not just within the team, but it's going across the company or from the company outside to other organisations. For example, you might be in a company that does projects, but there are certain things it does very, very well, but on other things it gets other companies to come in. It could be a joint venture or it could be a subcontractor. So it simply means that you're not just working with people of your own company, you're working with teams from another company. Or you could be interacting with a group in the community. So all of these are related to things that you may be involved with as a leader in the future. So if we look at the vertical dyadic theory, we won't go into each of them in great detail, but the big thing is we said this was about building in groups and out groups. And where you see this happen, and I've seen this happen in my working career, and I dare say you saw it even when you were at primary school. You saw in groups and out groups, and everyone wanted to be in the in group, and it doesn't often occur. You've probably seen it in sporting teams where the team captain perhaps has had their favourites because they're very, very good, and there are some people who are not so good. It's part of life. We don't like it, but it's a fact. And if we can recognise that it occurs, then we can try to stop it from happening so that we get a team and not teams within teams. So the out-group, of course, is people who don't have a great social tie with the leader. And this is something that doesn't help build a very, very strong team at all. If you're a follower in sport, the one thing you'll notice is that really good teams, when they're on the field, they seem to be playing as one. Team members can almost sense what another team member is thinking. You know, they're running with the ball and they do a quick flick of a pass. There's someone in the right place at the right time that takes that pass, and that's what makes sport often great to watch. Great teamwork. If we look at the leader-member exchange, this is the quality of the exchange, as we said, between the leader and each employee. And when we take each of these and we add them together, this is what we often get when we talk about synergy. And that is, if you've got really great interactions between the leader and every follower, when you add up the sum total, very often it ends up more than the individual sums. And so what we're going to talk about is how you can really make that work well for you. Because, as I say all the time throughout the course, this is not just a course to get through an exam. This is a course to help you get through life, not only in your job, but within your family and within your community. Okay, let's look at some of the situational factors that add to leader-member exchange quality. There's a managerial and a resource strength of leader. For example, followers don't respect leaders very much if the leaders don't get enough resources. That is, if the leader is always saying, well, we've got this job to do, and I asked for more people but I couldn't get them, doesn't look very well on your report card as far as the followers are concerned. The quality of the work group's climate. Some leaders are really good at fostering team spirit, social interactions, sporting events, social outings. The strength of an individual's social identity in the group. That is, the leader makes sure everyone feels a team member, gets them involved. That's the thing that really makes a good leader stand out. Everyone feels an individual. The leader has always got a word for every person that comes from the heart and doesn't sound as though I'm ticking off the boxes. The width of a leader's span of control, and these days this is a big one. Very often leaders may have up to 20 followers reporting to them, and that can be tough. And you might have to work within that environment, but you've got to make it work so you don't end up with in-groups and out-groups, or some people who really don't like working for you. And the stage of the relationship and the life cycle model. That is, when you first arrive taking over a new group, things are going to be a little bit different from when you've been there 12 months. So what you have to be able to do is to sit back and assess, how am I going at this stage? In fact, what a lot of leaders would like to be able to say is, what do you really think of me as the leader? But it doesn't look good, does it? But you've got to be able to read the signs to say, other signs showing that I'm doing pretty well in my leadership. Team building. What does it take to build good teams? These days in big sport, we can see this makes a huge amount of difference. For example, it doesn't matter whether you follow football, cricket, or any other sport. The one thing that we see is good coaches and good captains tend to have a lot of influence in building a good team. Why is it one captain can take over a team that's not been performing and suddenly turn it around? So the thing we're going to learn about is differentiated leadership, and that is, how do you be a captain of a team and make it look as though you're not treating anyone differently? Procedural fairness. That is, does everyone feel that they're being treated in the same way? If they don't feel that, the chances are you're going to, again, end up with in-groups and out-groups. And distributive fairness. That is, are the rewards shared fairly? That is, do the people who do the most work get rewarded? But do you also somehow recognise that it was the team's effort that did it. And very often you'll see this when a CEO at a particular award ceremony is given an award for Best Company of the Year and simply gets up on the stage and asks the people from his company to stand up and then simply says, "These people did it. I was simply the person giving the direction." It's a good sign in this world when you can do that. Followership. Followership is a skill within itself, and that's one of the things that we'll teach in the course. Leadership has its skills, but followership is also important. And we will come to a model which will look at how leaders influence followers, but also how followers can influence the leader. So, for example, we're going to look at Kelly's model. I love this model. I really think this is one of the most valuable models that we use in the course. And in aviation, it's used when they study crew resource management. And we have a number of different scales we have. For example, are people passive or are they active? That is, do they just sit and say nothing, or do they speak up? Do they think for themselves? They're dependent, uncritical thinkers. They depend on the leader doing all the talking. Or are they capable of thinking for themselves? So looking at those scales, we say, okay, if you're passive, but you're also dependent, uncritical thinking, you have passive followers. If you've got a person who is quiet, but also can think for themselves, you've got an alienated follower. This could be the co-pilot who's sitting back there and the aircraft is too high on approach, and they can see from their experience that the aircraft's going to land long on the runway and possibly overrun, but they simply sit back and say, "You're the captain, you're getting paid the big bucks, I'm not going to say anything. Kill us, but I'm just going to sit there and watch you muck it up." It happens. Conformist followers. These are the people, they don't think for themselves, but they're big speakers. "That was a great landing, Captain. Absolutely great landing. Even though the undercarriage is just about sticking through the wings, it was a great landing." Exemplary followers. These are people who think for themselves, but also speak up. In aviation, we want those in every part of aviation, not just in the cockpit, behind the cockpit, and also in the maintenance, passenger handling, everywhere. But then we get these people, the pragmatist followers. These are the dangerous ones because we don't know which quadrant they're in. They're like chameleons. They can adjust to fit the situation. So if you've got an alienated follower, you can recognise them and you can do things to turn them into an exemplary follower. But if you're saying, "I read this person, I'm getting conflicting signals, I don't know which quadrant they're fitting in," how do you change their behaviour? And that's why this is such a wonderful model. I think it's great. And in the course, we'll be looking at it a lot further. And you'll love it too. Things that determine follower influence, obviously the power position, the leader, locus of control. That is, we said locus of control was one of the traits. Are you one who shapes your path for the future, or do you just follow the path that life takes you through? And of course, education and experience. And these are important for leaders to be able to recognise within followers. And that is, what's their background? Are they self-driven, or are they just prepared to go as the stream takes them? And also, what's the power position that I've got with that follower? Delegation, sharing power. This is an important one. We've covered this previously. It takes a lot to be able to do delegation well. And the big thing is that when we delegate, we have to make sure that we do it properly. It's not just a matter of saying, "I want you to do this task," and just walk away. That's abrogation. There's a big difference between delegation and abrogation. It's got to be done right. And we'll show you as to how to do delegation correctly and deciding as to what you're going to delegate and who you're going to delegate it to. And we'll use the model and we'll show you the steps to go through, telling the person why I'm giving this. That is, I'm not just trying to offload work so I can make my life easier. There's a good reason for me giving you this job to do. It could be to develop you. Setting objectives so the person knows exactly what they have to do, what decisions that they can make without you, their level of authority, and the deadline. Making sure they've got a plan, because your job is to help their development as part of it, and then establish control checkpoints. That is, you don't want to wait until the last day and find out, gee, they're only 1/3 through the task. So delegation has got to be done properly, and we'll show you how to do it. So in this lecture, we've covered a fair amount again, and these are important skills. We've looked at the model, and we've looked at the vertical dyadic link. We've looked at the leader-member exchange. We've looked at teams. We've looked at how networks work outside. We've looked at Kelly, one of the great models, and you'll love it as I do. We'll look at what drives followers, the importance of delegation and doing it properly so it doesn't end up being abrogation, and looking at how you can make yourself better in this whole process as a leader. Thank you.